Hi, I'm Lou Scott, and this is the Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you, because here we're going to explore and explain ideas and techniques to make it easier for you to make better decisions, transformative decisions, decisions that will help you the way you live, the way you work, and where you play in our state. Now, a few weeks ago, I was sitting in my living room in front of the fire, and all of a sudden I was startled by a little head, a little white head that was coming out of my wood pile, a little basket of wood. Now the little white head kept getting bigger and bigger. I thought it was a mouse, but it wasn't. It kept bigger and bigger. And I thought it was a weasel or it was a ferret. But it was interesting to look at. Here's this ferret, this all-white ferret. Now I didn't know that there is such a thing as albinos. If there's such a thing as albino, I didn't even know that it was a ferret as opposed to a weasel. So what I did was I Googled it, and it's interesting what I found out. I found out that ferrets that are born in the wild are lighter, and there is such a thing as a white ferret. Here he was pictured in my Google, and there he was sitting in my basket. Those ferrets that are born in captivity tend to be darker. Now here's an interesting thing also. A white ferret, is hard of hearing. So I said to my son, when we get rid of this ferret out of the house, we got to make sure we do it loudly because he's deaf, which was a joke, but we both laughed about it, but the idea, and he kind of disappeared. Now, you're asking yourself, why do I tell this ferret story when this show is about ideas, about making decisions, about making creative decisions? Well, here's the answer. Life learning. It's a little tip for life learning to improve your brain. What you do is, if something comes into your mind, an idea, or you're having an argument, or you walk by something and you're curious about it, Google it. Get some information on that. The more information that you put into your brain, the more connectivities, the more pathways you make. And the more pathways you make, the more components of your brain you use, and you make better decisions. So it's a life learning technique. Pursue the unknown. Pursue what you don't know in every aspect of your life, and you'll be a better decision maker. Now, what you're doing when you do that is you're taking advantage of what doctors call the plasticity of the brain, which is the ability of the brain to absorb, to make new pathways, new combinations. And pathways and combinations is what we're going to be talking about in this time together on this show. Now, no matter how we look at it, we're back to normal after COVID, the new normal, whatever it might be, we're going to still have the problems that Vermont faces, the demographic problems, the revitalization of our downtown areas, getting youth to come. We have to solve those problems, and we have to solve them in innovative ways. Now, you heard me say this many, many times. You can solve new problems with old ideas. The old ideas probably created the new problems in the first place. You're going to have to do creative ideas, transformative ideas. There's no doubt about that. Now, in the same week of the white ferret, the deaf white ferret, I read a book called 60 Ways to Make Your Brain Sharper. What was I impressed with this book is that she was talking about common ways, common things we do, common things you probably do now, and never realize how important they are to do. And she supported all those suppositions with some very concrete and very impressive research. So I'd like to share with you some of the things she talked about and add some aspects of it, like so far. I can't do 60, but I'm going to do 7 or 8. And we're going to talk about pathways and common things that she showed me to be ways of improving your brain to the extent that you can make better decisions. Now, the first one was a chapter called Java, coffee. Now, interesting enough is that Java, when I was in the service, Java was what we call coffee. Hey, pass the Java, give me a cup of Java. Interesting is that Java is actually a trademark of an Indonesian coffee. It's also Java, the word Java, J-A-V-A, was also one of the first computer languages. Interesting. Life learning. life learning. I looked it up. Now, we all know that the coffee and the caffeine in the coffee wakes us up, gets us going, makes us go, charges us out into the world. However, according to an interesting study, and a very advanced study by Johns Hopkins, okay, coffee does much more than that. Now listen to this. Coffee improves your memory. If you have a better memory, you're going to remember all the input that you're taking in, and by remembering it, you're going to create better connections in your brain, and you're going to make better decisions. Coffee also improves your judgment. Every decision, you make judgments. Now here you have the ability to improve your judgments, okay? Coffee also wards off dementia and is good for your heart. Interesting. Now, there is a caveat about the whole coffee. Coffee will make you a healthier brain. Coffee will give you a creative brain. However, there's a caveat, as I mentioned. The studies show that you shouldn't drink more than 500 milligrams, which is about 2.5 cups of coffee. That's all. After that, when you drink it, it's diminishing returns. It doesn't help you. It doesn't give you the results that you want that when you're drinking the first 2.5 cups. Stick to 2.5 cups of coffee, you're going to make better decisions. Interesting. There's a second one. She called the chapter Games. Now, we're not talking about, put your device down, we're not talking about the games where there's jumping, explosions, and killings, and deaths, and enemies that look like enemies, giant enemies. They're not talking about those games. She's talking about board games, chess, Chinese checkers, balderdash, Monopoly. She talks about the idea that when we play these games, what they do is they create, we're using different pathways in our brain. And when we do that, what we're doing also, when we play those games, is we're taking advantage of what is called neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is the ability of the brain to create more cells. To the billions you have, it creates more cells. Now, you're not going to wake up one morning and you're going to be an Einstein. No, you're not. However, by creating more cells, by playing these games, by creating better pathways, you're enriching the brain. You're giving the brain more of an ability to make better decisions, which we need, more transformative decisions. Interesting. Play the games, put your device down, play the board games. You'll probably enjoy them with your family, and it'll be good not only for you, but your family and your children as they're home. Number 3, creating art. Now, we're all not artists. I'm not an artist. You're not an artist. You may be, however. But the idea of creating art, painting, finger painting, oil painting, sculpturing, the whole concept of it, not the concept of creating something that's beautiful or good, doesn't have to be. Just the art, the idea of creating art, doing it. What we do is we experience greater neural connectivity. Again, just creating the art, the act of creating art brings together more neurons, more synapses in your brain, and when you do that, you're improving the brain, you're enriching it. And when you enrich it, you're going to make better decisions. And we have to make better decisions. Interesting. Do some art. If you're really getting interested in art, well, you can go to art school, take lessons. But be art smart. This is about being art smart. Don't look for beautiful pieces of work. It's unimportant. You're doing it to create, you enrich your brain, not to create art. Okay, be smart about it. Don't be so critical of yourself. Don't be critical of yourself. You're interested in art, go to museums, look at art and so forth, but the idea here is to do it. Sculpture, paint, whatever you want to do. Do the art, improve your brain. Number 4, I like this one. It's very important also. No pain, no gain. She talks about the idea that the brain is a muscle and it needs exercise. Now, the way it gets exercise, fascinating. Where you get brain exercise is to have it acquire new information, new things. Familiarity is not creative. New things are creative. New things create pathways. New things strengthen our brain, okay, by creating new pathways, okay? That's what exercises the brain, makes it better, and gives it the ability to actually make better decisions. Now, familiarity, as I said, is not creative. There was a test of research at the University of Texas, and they found out that the brain, as it acquires new information becomes healthier, becomes more creative, becomes more innovative. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, but it needs new information. We can't stay in our comfort zones. We have to get out of our comfort zones. We have to venture out. We got to take chances in our decisions, because that's going to not only make better decisions, it's going to enrich your brain to make better decisions. Again, familiar things, safe zones, our experience does not create better brains. Reaching out, venturing out, taking chances, that's what creates better brains, better information, better decisions, and that's what we're talking about. Now, number 5, wholesome guidance. Now, don't laugh at this one. We go down, as human beings, we go down the dark path of rumination, rumination, rumination. Now, what is it? Rumination comes from the Latin word rumatoria, and also is, or rumen. Now, the rumen, rumen, is the first level of a cow's digestive system. A cow eats its food, chews it, puts it back down into its rumen, where it ferments, and then he regurgitates it. He cut and he chews his cut, and he does this over and over again. He ruminates. He keeps making it fermented, and probably the cud gets worse and worse in terms of fermentation. Now, what does it have to do about human beings? What human beings do is we ruminate usually our problems. Listen to this. What we usually do is go over our problems over and over and over again, and when we think about them like that, instead of using the energy to solve the problems, we create a greater problem. Our problems get bigger. The more we ruminate, regurgitate, the more we chew our cud, ruminate on the problem, we can make the problem more difficult. How many times have you remember when you were worried about doing something, and then you finally did it, and when you're doing it, it wasn't as bad as what you thought it would be. You ruminated. Forget ruminating. It's a dark path. A dark path that leads you not to good decisions. It just leads to be a paralysis. It leads you to a point where you're not going to make any decisions, because the problem's going to get bigger. Use the energy to create better ideas. Don't ruminate. Number 6, treat the body and the brain kindly. Now, she talks about one of the ways to do this is a deep therapeutic massage. Don't laugh. It's interesting how what the research shows, what a massage actually does for the brain. Okay, now, what the massage does for the brain, it creates, it loosens, it migrates, it makes it appear that it releases the dopamine and the serotonin in our body, the 2 hormones that make us feel good. These 2 hormones go out through our body, they go through our brain, they make us feel good, and when you feel good with these hormones released after the massage, what you're doing is you're going to make better decisions because you feel good. Now, not only do that, the tests show that, is that when you get this massage, research has showed that you're going to be more inspired to do things. You're going to be more innovative. Isn't that interesting? Innovative, inspired. You're going to make better decisions now. Whether you go to a professional massage or your partner massages you, take the opportunity to do it, because it will make your brain stronger, sharper, and give it the ability to make better decisions. Isn't that fascinating? Now, number 7, green thumb. You're going to like this one. We all like to garden. I like to garden. But there's a science to garden, and when we do gardening, what it does for us is actually improves our brain. Now, here's why. In the dirt that we use to garden is a bacteria called Mycobacterium vaccae. Mycobacterium vaccae. This bacteria in the dirt, okay, even if you smell the dirt, in the dirt, stimulates, again, serotonin and dopamine. It gets the brain to release serotonin and dopamine. And when you release that, what you're doing is you're feeling better. and you're becoming more inspired, you're becoming more inventive, more in innovation. Interesting. So garden. If you don't want to garden, walk in the ground and pick up the dirt and just smell it. Inhale that bacteria, because when you do, simple as that, as silly as it sounds, you're stimulating the brain, you're stimulating positive hormones in your brain, and that's going to give you better decisions. Isn't that an interesting thing to do? Now, I want to summarize. That's 7 pieces. I want to summarize what I want you to really, what's important to take away from this time we spent together. And here's some of the things that I think you really have to ponder. Most important, seek the unfamiliar. Use this time that you have in COVID, whatever the case, wherever you are, to learn new things, to probe new things, to life learn. Because when you do, you enrich the brain. And a rich brain is a creative brain. A familiarity, doing the things over and over again that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, is not creative. It doesn't help the brain. It doesn't strengthen the brain. Seek the familiar. Venture out. Take chances. Keep that in mind. Life learn. Like the example, you have it in your hand. If you have your device, something is interesting to you, an idea comes up, you get trapped into an argument, whatever the case might be, look it up. Look up more information. The more information that you feed your brain, the more information, the more pathways you create. And the more pathways you create, the better decisions you make. And boy, do we need better decisions. We need transformative decisions. Get out of your comfort zone and life learn. Don't ruminate. Don't regurgitate. Don't keep chewing your cud. Don't keep going over the problem. I remember when I was in business, I would have Monday morning meetings, and we would go over how we were going to plan to solve the problems of my clients. And I would say to my staff, don't tell me the problems. I know the problems, because on Friday I got a big problem. I got to make payroll, okay? Tell me the solutions, otherwise don't speak up. People have a tendency to go over the problem, and it just seems to get bigger and more dimensional and more something that we can't overcome. Use the energy to solve the problem. Do not ruminate. Remember the word. Don't chew your cud. Do not ruminate. With that, let me leave you with this small piece of advice. Wear your mask, keep your distance, wash your hands. Okay, it's not a political thing. Nobody's telling you what to do. You're doing it for yourself, your own health, your own health. This will pass if we all do these things and get your vaccination when you're supposed to. With that, I'm Lou Scott, and this is the Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you. Until next time, thank you.